Do you want to know a secret? I'm going to tell you a secret. I'm going to tell you how to become a 10x developer, and all it requires is installing the right plugins. Now, this is something that the other Neovim content creators out there are not going to tell you, either because they don't know because they're fucking bozos, or because they don't want you to know. They want to be the only ones who are special, but you can be special too. Listen to me, lend me your eyes and ears for the next few minutes. I'll tell you how to set up your editor, and it's going to be 10 times faster than anyone else's. It's going to be a fucking Ferrari of an editor, and it's going to look 10 times better than anyone else's editor. You're going to get distracted. You're going to be like, look at that pop-up menu. Oh, I want to get jiggy with that. I want to get distracted. Oh yeah, good thing I'm a 10x developer, because otherwise I'd be fucking touching myself all day. So, all it takes is a little bit of time, not too much skill though. Don't have to read the docs, just install the right things, run the right commands. And you're going to be inducted into the hall of fucking goddom. You're going to be a god, not a programmer, a god, a legend. At least that's the idea anyway. Yellow?
You can't do the Devloper thing. You have to do fold expression instead. You have to do it.
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to like that.
There's no choice.
Well, okay then. I guess I'll let them know. Okay, yeah, well, talk to you later. Bye. Well, slight change of plans. That stuff I was going to talk about, the 10x developer thing, can't talk about that. So instead, I have to talk about fold expressions. Let's get started. So what is a fold expression? Well, it's one of the methods that you can use to tell Vim how to fold text in your buffer. And what I'm specifically going to show in this screencast is how you can write a fold expression that combines two other kinds of folding and that's used both at the same time. And the two kinds that I'm going to demonstrate are fold indent and fold marker. So let me demonstrate what these things look like, how they work, and then we'll look at the code that shows how to write one of these fold expressions. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to open my init.lua for Neovim and just show you what these fold markers look like. So there's one right there, and if actually I fold everything in the buffer, if I fold everything in the buffer, you can see that I've got 4 of these markers. Effectively, I'm dividing my config file into sections: an options section, a section where I deal with globals, and a section where I configure my plugins, and finally a footer at the end. And so I use folding a lot to navigate. I've got tab bound to toggle folds, so I can basically unfold one of these sections very easily with the tab and then fold it back again. But sometimes when I'm looking at one of these rather large sections, I also want to look at an indent-based fold. So I'm going to go down a little bit. You can see some of these are actually already closed. So I have one like this. I might want to be able to tab there and also toggle it. Normally with marker-based folding, I'll show you. Set fold method equals marker. If I try to fold this indent-based fold here, it'll actually fold the whole section, and that's kind of annoying. So you can't have marker and indent active at the same time, but I really want to have indent active at the same time. So let's set it back to what it was before. Fold method equals fold expression. Expression is what I'm looking for. And along with fold method expression, there is a setting called fold expression. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. It's, in this case, calling a Lua function that I wrote. So why do I like indent-based folding? I think it's obvious why I like marker-based folding, but indent-based folding may not be as obvious, especially when you may be allured by the seductive call of other kinds of folding like syntax-based folding or tree-sitter-based folding. So basically, the short of it is indent-based folding is incredibly reliable and incredibly fast. So I'm going to demonstrate that. I'm going to open a really big file that I have. So this one here. This will take a second or two to open because it's 48 megabytes of Lua. It's over 600,000 lines long. You can see that I've got folding here, and that works. This is still using my, it's actually using fold method indent. That's because it was temporarily toggled to be a fold method indent. So we want this to be expression. And you'll see that no fold found, really. This sucks. Set fold expression. There's no fold expression. Oh my God, where was I? Set fold expression. I'm gonna grab this Why can't I grab it? Oh, because I'm not in Tmux. That is so annoying. Yank inside there, go to the other buffer. For once, I thought I wouldn't be in Tmux because I wanted to have more screen real estate available for Vim. So anyway, let's stick that in there. We're going to set fold expression equals this guy. Okay, so now folding should work. Yeah, so even though this buffer is, as you can see, 600,000 lines long, I can quite easily fold it with this fold expression. So in large files as well, like I just closed a fold with 412,000 lines in it. So a fold expression, if it's carefully written, can be fast. Speaking of dealing with really large files, I'm probably going to do another screencast on that, so subscribe if you want to hear about it. But now that I've shown that you can have an expression-based fold which is fast, I'm going to go back to explaining how all this stuff is set up. So I'm going to go back to this buffer here. And let's talk about, sorry, I'm getting a bit confused here because this is unscripted and unrehearsed. Yeah, I wanted to talk about why I like indent-based folding and why my fold expression effectively emulates indent-based folding and combines it with marker-based folding. The reason why is it's reliable. I opened that huge file to show you that an indent-based fold can be fast. But if I open another file, like I said, here's a JavaScript file. Nowadays, pretty much everyone is using code formatters. So it's extremely rare that you would actually be in a buffer where the folding doesn't work well because the indents are wrong, because the indents can be easily corrected with a language server or with a command line tool like Prettier or whatever, depending on what ecosystem you're operating in. And so your indentation is usually quite good. And furthermore, like when you're typing in a buffer, it's quite easy for you to produce the right indentation because when you do stuff, it's going to maintain, well, it didn't there because maybe you're not supposed to have an if statement there. But basically, it's going to put the indent where it should be most of the time. So it's really unlikely actually that you have bad indentation. And so indentation-based folding works better than all the others, believe it or not. So as we saw in the help that I was looking at previously, one of the methods is indent, and it's just simply looking at how far in the text is and folding based on that. Another is syntax. That works, but if you try it on a big file like the one that I was showing before, or even not even something even remotely close to that large, just hundreds of lines or 1,000 or so lines, that can be enough to make indent-based syntax-based folding too slow. And then there's tree setter, which everyone's talking about. Got another screencast coming on that soon, at least I hope. You might think, yeah, tree setter's great, tree setter's fast, it does incremental parsing, but tree setter is also too slow for a buffer like the one I just showed. And in my experience, it's not that reliable. And so nothing beats indent-based folding for simplicity and performance and just generally working and getting out of your way. And so that's why I wanted to build this simple expression-based fold that would combine the best of marker-based folding and indent-based folding. So now, with all of that out the way, let's go back and look at the actual implementation. So as you can see here, I've got fold method set to expression in my .files. I've got the expression itself set to a Lua function that I've written. And the only other relevant setting that I've got, which I may or may not explain later, is I've got fold min lines set to 0. So basically, this says what is the smallest section that you will allow the editor to attempt to fold. And so an example of that would be up the top here, where I've got like a one-line block. The default for fold min lines, I think, is 1, which means normally you try to fold something like this and it won't fold. But I've got it set so that you do fold. I just like the consistency of knowing that wherever there's an indent, I can fold it, even if it doesn't make much sense to fold it. And there is more that I can say on that, but I will say it later if I remember to do it. So let's look at my little fold expression. There it is. Not so little, actually. It's 199 lines long. Whoops. It could be shorter, but some of its comments. And so I'm just going to basically walk through the approach here. I don't want to comment on every line in this 199 file, sorry. Here's the meat of it though. Basically, what a fold expression is a function that will be called with a line number, and you have to return something so that Vim knows what the fold level should be for that line. So something like, if I jump up a few lines above, there, the fold level here on this line is 0. And actually, maybe one way to demonstrate this, if I can remember how to do it. Here you go. To debug this, set your status column to this. So let's do that. Set the status column there, and then grab this. So what I've got here on the left, you've got line numbers, and then you've got the fold level. So all this stuff which is in the leftmost column is fold level 0. Then when it's indented, it's fold level 1, and with each successive level of indentation, it jumps up another fold level. So you can see that's 2, 3, 4, and so on. So the job of this fold expression is effectively to return a number like that, telling Vim what the fold level is. There are a few other things that you can tell Vim to do, and I'll get to those in a sec. But let's go to our marker-based file again, so we can just compare. That was this one. I'm going to have to do the same thing. I'm going to set the status column, and I'm going to set the number width to be a little bit wider. So here you can see, once again, whenever we indent, the fold level goes up. So that's level 0, level 1, back to level 0. But here, things get different. As soon as we hit the marker, as it says here, it's setting fold level to 1. So from that point on, even though all of these lines start in the 0th column of the buffer, they're already fold level 1. And by the time I go down to the next fold, you can see it goes from 1 to 2. By the way, how was I doing that? That was ZJ. So a lot of these fold mappings start with Z. I'm not sure if this is the right mental model, but for me the mnemonic is Z kind of looks like a folded thing. It's like a straight line that's been folded twice. So a lot of the fold bindings start with Z. So ZJ to jump to a fold below where you are, ZK to go to a previous one, ZC to close a fold, ZO to open a fold, ZR to reduce the fold level, Z Shift R to reduce, Z Shift R to reduce the fold level as low as it can go, ZM to fold more, ZM, ZM, Z Shift M to fold as much as you can. But anyway, yeah, the point that I was trying to make was that the job of the fold expression is to return a number. However, as I said, there are some other things you can do. And so if I search for the text, the help on fold expression, it will reveal to you that there are actually other things that you can return. And so 0 is telling Vim that the line isn't fold. An integer number is saying what level a line is. But then there are these other kind of fancy ones, such as equals, which basically says whatever this line is, it's the same fold as the line above it. And same with A1, A2, that basically says add 1 to whatever the previous fold level was. Or subtract 1, that's what S followed by a digit does. And then there are these explicit markers, which were kind of like the ones that are just integers, but they say not only to them, this thing starts a fold, this line starts a fold of this level, or let me just rephrase that. These ones with the greater than and less than symbol, instead of just saying this line has such and such a level, they say this line starts a fold with such and such a level. And the reason why that's important is when you've got marker-based folding, the user can specify what they want the fold level to be starting at that level, and so you basically have to return this syntax. So let's get back to my implementation. And once again, sorry for the incoherent rambling that I'm doing here. It's definitely not what you signed up for at the start, but whatever. So let's look at the fold expression again, wherever even that was. Fold expression. This is custom fold expression. Yeah. So as I said, the job of this function is to return a number or something like a number. When I first implemented this, I found that I couldn't use the special return values like the fold level of this line is the same as the previous line, or the fold level of this line is one more than the other, for reasons that I won't go into a lot of detail about. But one of the issues is that when you tell Vim that you want a line to be a modification of the line before it, it will actually end up sometimes calling the fold expression again with the line above. And then if that line also says, I'm the same as the guy before, it'll call again and again and again. So if the buffer is sufficiently large, Vim might actually end up scanning backwards quite a bit through the buffer in order to find what the level should be. And there's somewhere in the help which says, well, actually, I'll just read it to you, fold expression. There's somewhere in here which says, be careful. Try to avoid the equals A and S return values because Vim often has to search backwards for a line. That's cool. It says somewhere in here that you can call a function called fold level to figure out what the previous fold level was. And beware that it might return -1 because if you're computing a fold level for a particular line and you want to ask it, what was the fold level for this other line? Well, it might not have called the fold expression on that line yet, so it might not actually know, and in that case it will return -1. It says, however, as an exception, it's generally the case that you can always get the fold level of the line before because Vim is mostly working from the top down. It turns out that it's not actually generally true at all. It's false often enough that calling a fold level is basically completely useless in an implementation like this. So, with all of that out the way, the implementation that I ended up going with is the one that you can see here. We're going to skip that bit, just hide it behind a fold. But basically, we build up a cache for each buffer of where the markers are in the buffer. So if there are no markers, we're not even going to look at this cache. And when we looked at the file with 48 megabytes of text, you can see that scanning through the buffer, looking where all the markers are, is not prohibitively slow, and we can do that just fine. And in fact, I'm just storing the position of the markers within the file, like in a simple table. So when I need to look up and for any given line, like what markers came before it, I have to scan through this list. It's a linear scan. In practice, buffers usually don't have that many marks, so you can look through this list quite quickly. You don't need something like a binary search tree to make it fast, although I am tempted to kind of put one in here anyway, just to make it really robust against a pathological case which would have, 100,000 markers in it. But for the time being, I haven't done that. It's just, like I say, a simple table that we do a linear scan through. And so with this cache, basically, we're going to populate it by when the buffer is first loaded. Sorry, we're going to get all the buffer lines and we're going to find the markers, which isn't too hard because they're just things with those curly brackets. And furthermore, we're going to attach to the buffer so that we get updates. So whenever the lines change, we're going to be called with a range of lines in the buffer that have changed. And so that's what this onLines function here does, which it's basically going to figure out, were there any markers in the lines that were changed? Because if there were, we have to kind of like throw them out and rescan the range and decide whether we need to add new markers. Furthermore, if the lines that got changed ended up producing a bigger block of lines in the buffer, in other words, did we add text to the buffer, then all of the line numbers after of markers after the changed range, they'll need to be updated. And same as if the range shrank as well, that means the line numbers of markers after the affected range, they'll also need to be updated. So that's what this code does. I'm not going to go through it in detail because if you really wanted to, you could look at it yourself. And then that gets us to the point where we actually have to do the work of returning the fold level for any given line. So basically, we look through our cache of markers for a buffer. Just say I have to update line 1, return the fold level for line 100. I'm going to look in the cache and see, are there any markers above line 100? And if they are, that's going to influence what the so-called base level is. So the base level at the start of the buffer is 0, but if I see a marker that starts a new fold level, then we're going to, and furthermore, if I'm on the line that starts the new fold level, we're just going to tell Vim like a new fold level of this level, a new fold of this level starts at this line. Otherwise, if we have a marker that says a new fold level starts at this line, but I'm actually evaluating the fold level for a line after it, we'll just bump our base up a little bit. So what all of this logic does is basically determine like what is the base level of the fold above us, so that at the line that we're currently at, we can then add the indent-based fold to whatever the base fold from the marker is. Rewind if you didn't understand that. It's kind of hard to explain. So after all of that, we know how deeply folded we should be based on the markers that went before us. And then we can do this code to determine what is the indent-based fold. And as I showed before, even with hundreds of thousands of lines, this code is just fine. Even though it's doing this kind of stuff, it's calling this prev non-blank function to figure out what is the line number of the previous location in the buffer that wasn't a blank line. So potentially you could imagine like it scanning up quite far if you had a lot of blank lines. Once again, maybe that's like a pathological case. I don't know if you're going to have a buffer with like 100,000 empty lines in it. But at least on any kind of real world buffer, this is going to be fine. And then you just do some math and you return the fold level. And so with all of that out the way, you basically know how it works. And so I hope that was interesting to you, and I would encourage you to go and read the fold help. So let's look at that again. Is it fold? Yeah, fold.txt. This guy here, 619 lines. this is one of my favorite manual pages because there's so much good stuff in here. And folding is like an underappreciated feature because unless you know the bindings, you could go for years of using Vim without using folds and without knowing how to use them. But once you start using them, they end up being incredibly valuable. And so I'll probably do another screencast on folds at some point because I think they're great. And so in the meantime, I hope you enjoyed this. And next time, I'll tell you how to become a 10x developer. Thanks for tuning in. Talk to you later.